It feels like Jim Harbaugh is helping the Chargers close the gap between them and the champion Chiefs, but Sunday night showed once again that they're not quite there yet.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer. And we've been covering the Chargers now together for 9 seasons, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers for making us your first listen, especially after another heartbreaking loss. We appreciate you guys as always, and to make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel. David, heartbreak once again. Here we are.
Yeah, man, I was expecting the offensive anemia to happen in the second half like it has all season long, and of course that wasn't the case. They actually exploded in the second half, was able to score a couple of touchdowns, something they haven't done since the Saints game, which is score 17 points in the second half of a football game. But that anemia came in the first half where they could not do absolutely anything. The defense played their hearts out, was on the field for a large portion of this game. But, of course, the Chargers come up just a little bit short once again.
Which has, been the story even pre-Jim Harbaugh, unfortunately. But this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. And, David, it is just the heartbreak, right? And we talked about it a little bit before the show. The Chargers didn't lose the game on a doinked field goal that ends up going in, a 31-yarder that could have put an end to the Chiefs' black magic that they've been able to survive these games over the last month. But at the same time, it just gave Chargers fans, just when there was no hope, a shred of hope, just to dash it away that quickly, right? Just waiting for the officials.
Or just an extra dagger right in the heart.
Yeah,
just
of course.
A nice little twist right there at the end.
And it sucks because it's hard to say it's a full-on moral victory when you've been close before, right? Like, They've been close in these games. With Brandon Staley, they were close in these games. Even Anthony Lynn, at times, they're close in these games. But it's finding a way to get it done. And once again, the Chargers couldn't do that. And now it's 7 straight losses to the Chiefs. 4 of those losses are 3 points or less. Only one of those 7 games was at a double-digit game. Like, the Chargers continue to stay close. And they just kind of bailed out, it felt like, a Chiefs team that was pretty vulnerable and a chance to give Jim Harbaugh that statement win and to kind of show the Chiefs, hey, we might not be there this year, but we're coming for you.
Yeah, I think I like what the defense showed us. I feel like the offense was really, really bad for a half of football, like they have been a lot this year. They kept it close, man. They got your heart rate up. They got you feeling like, hey, they could win this game. But the thing is that the difference here is the Chargers have not mastered the art of winning in pretty much any situation. And the Chiefs have, they've been put in, say whatever you want, say they're vulnerable. I've said it multiple times.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is they've been put in these uncomfortable situations so many times. It's not uncomfortable for them. They know how to win and they showcase it time and time and time again. When they need to make the plays at the end of the game, when they need to win, when they need to completely take away the will from the other team, they know how to do it, and they do it repeatedly. That's what makes them such a great team and such a hard team to beat, because you have to finish with the football. If you don't, then you're probably going to lose.
Absolutely, and that's evidenced no better than by this. I mean, Justin Herbert has given the Chargers the lead against the Chiefs with less than 5 minutes left in the game 5 times, and 8 times they've matched up. 5 out of 8, he's given them the lead late in the fourth quarter. They're 1-4 in those games. They had the one game with, less than 30 seconds, Mike Williams touchdown instead of going for the field goal. That was awesome. 2021 is when we're talking about. It's just not good enough. But for Justin Herbert to, always kind of take the blame for this, and we'll talk about the blunders that he had, but to have given the Chargers the lead 5 times in 8 matchups versus Patrick Mahomes, with the Chargers just being unable to keep those leads ever, it's just pretty brutal. And that is a game that's going to come with a lot of what ifs, David, and that were really the things that ended up bringing them down at the end. It all added up to a game the Chargers couldn't end up winning when they missed the plays and missed on the plays that they had available to them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the biggest one on the offensive side that comes to mind is Joshua Palmer streaking down the middle of the football field on a post, wide open, just all by himself. And unfortunately, Justin Herbert overthrows him and misses a absolutely surefire, guaranteed touchdown that could have obviously altered the trajectory of this ball game. And that's one of the biggest things. And hey, like, to Justin's credit, like, he has been one of the most accurate deep throwers in the NFL this year and most successful. On this play, on this instance, on this night, unfortunately, it wasn't there for Justin Herbert and for the Chargers offense, and that was a huge blunder. Obviously, also, the special teams kickoff penalty at the end of the game turned out to be an absolutely huge mistake. Like, that's just something that just can't happen at that moment in the game. You got to make the Chiefs go out there and drive the length of the field and go earn the victory. But man, it just seems like it just made it too easy for them at the end.
Yeah, and what you're alluding to there is obviously the Chiefs get the ball back with over 4.5 minutes to play at the end. You kick it off to them, and I agree with making them try to earn it on the kickoff and trying to make them return it and not giving it to them on the 30. But it backfires. Cameron Dicker kicks it short, and they end up getting it and starting it on a 40, and all they need is one field goal to put you away. That's just an almost impossible task for the Chargers defense in that instance. And the thing with Justin Herbert and Joshua Palmer, I see a lot of blame, right? It's because Josh Palmer's slow. Justin Herbert has to make that throw. First of all, Justin Herbert has to make that throw. I think the more interesting thing is how that chemistry isn't there between those guys, because we saw it only a couple weeks ago against Baltimore, a chance to kind of get back in the game, a chance to change things, and he misses him on a big throw like that. You want to be able to, in those moments, and it's a collapsing pocket, whatever, to be able to float that out and let him run underneath it and lead him, and not have it have to be something where you're hitting him perfectly in stride when he's that wide open. It was a huge play. Justin Herbert has to make that throw. But Justin Herbert is still pretty good in this game, and it's easy to remember, that and forget about all of the plays that, got called back by penalties that he made and all the other things. And I think that was eventually kind of what the Chargers did in this game that lost them this game, and it was not being able to overcome the woes that they had in the first half offensively. 3 straight 3-and-outs at one point before getting the ball back with 47 seconds left in the half and then not doing anything with it. That means in the last 2 games against the Chiefs, David, you've basically played an entire game of football, 4 quarters, where you haven't scored. Second half in the first game, first half in the second game, and they just weren't able to overcome it.
Yeah, I mean, just nothing nothing at all for the offense in the first half. Like, it was hard to watch. Like, it truly was hard to watch. They could not run the ball. They ran for 22 yards in the first half. Like, it was just absolutely not enough. Like, it's really, really hard to sustain offense when you're getting nothing in the running game, and you're having to throw to receivers that are not known for getting separation against man coverage, and the defenses you're going up against are trying to put you in those situations and trying to figure out who is going to be able to get open. And in the first half, the answer to that question was absolutely nobody. I mean, outside of a couple of shot plays here and there, that was it. That was the extent of the offense. They had 122 yards of total offense in the first half, and that's just not going to cut it against the teams like the Kansas City Chiefs that are probably a little flawed, but also extremely disciplined, very well coached, and know how to move the ball and score points. And the Chargers have not been able to put a full game together of scoring from beginning to end. It always seems like there's some kind of lull, some kind of disappearance by the offense at some point in a game. This time, it just was in the first half of the game.
Yeah, and just to clean it up, 34 rushing yards for the Chargers in the first half, but 12 of those are on a Taylor Heineke scramble after Justin Herbert had to leave the game. So hard to count that as a positive. I mean, not good enough. And it just felt like without Ladd McConkey, you were really feeling that in the first half. There was just no consistency, no way to get the running game going because there was no drives that kept going. And the 2 drives that you did get going, you made it into Kansas City territory twice in the first half, and you came away with 0 points on those 2 trips. That's the inexcusable part. And it's just been way too many halves of football that we're talking about here, where we're talking about a scoreless Chargers offense, right? Too many times where you're seeing 3 consecutive 3-and-outs and things of that nature. In this game, 5 penalties for 45 yards just in the first half alone. That's what's going to do it to you, and that is the frustration. I think the one silver lining from this game is The Chargers did get things going in the second half. They didn't have a drive in the second half where they didn't put points on the board. And that's what they're going to have to be able to hope they can carry forward, and also hope that the confidence that someone like a Quentin Johnston gets from this game can pay dividends for you, because it is a crucial 4-game stretch of the season coming up. So we're going to talk about what we can take away from that second half of Chargers offensive football and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys that history, economics, the great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. Did you study these things in school? Probably not. Or even if you did, maybe it's time for a refresher. Time and technology have changed a lot of things, and they have not changed basic fundamental truths about the world and our place in it. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, introduction to free market economics, the great American story, a land of hope, and so much more. And all of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just sit back and enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. I also need to tell you guys about PrizePicks, because PrizePicks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. And PrizePicks is also the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, because unlike on other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you versus the numbers. Instead of having to pick a lineup and hoping that the other person doesn't have almost the identical lineup to you, all you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. And it's great news because they also have a bunch of great promotions like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% and even more value for your lineups. And one of my favorite parts, PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. You may have missed on the Chargers this week, but if you're trying to get that bad taste out of your mouth, you can get some action in tonight and win some money. You can go with Joe Burrow throwing for more than or less than 278.5 passing yards, and pair that with CeeDee Lamb getting more than or less than 69.5 receiving yards. If you do that, it's that easy. All you have to do, download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get that $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to get that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. David, it wasn't all negatives in this game against the Chiefs, and there's not many times you're coming away from a game like this feeling like there's anything you can kind of take away from it or anything you can kind of tuck yourself in to sleep with at night. But in this game, there was a hugely positive development, and that was the second half offense. It's hard to feel good about it because the first half offense was so bad, but it did seem like, David, there was something tangible to what they got going, and I think for them to put together that streak in the second half where they scored on every drive. The only thing they could have literally done better in this game was to score a touchdown on that final drive, and it would have been 3 drives, 21 points, 3 touchdowns. That's pretty close to perfect, right? Yeah. So, I think especially doing it without Ladd McConkey, that is a huge positive sign.
It really is. It really is, because obviously Ladd McConkey's dealing with a couple of different injuries, and who knows? Hopefully Ladd will be back and ready to go next week. But I think this should give the Chargers and Chargers fans a lot more confidence in their ability to manufacture offense, absent, one of their best offensive players, which obviously Ladd McConkey has proven to be up to this point. He's one of the best.
If you have him, you probably win this game
in the league. Yeah,
it feels like if you have him, you win this game, right?
I think so. I think so, 100%. I mean, Ladd McConkey's ability to create separation and be so reliable and friendly to Justin Herbert could have been really, really helpful against this Chiefs secondary. But, I mean, hey, that's just not what happened, unfortunately. But what they did do in the second half was find a way to get that running game going. They were able to run the ball a little bit more. They were able to sustain some offense. They got some shot plays to some people that you weren't exactly expecting to contribute. Like guys like Quentin Johnston, obviously Stone Smart, we're going to talk about a little bit more, but they were able to sustain offense. They were able to score touchdowns. This is the first time since they played the New Orleans Saints that they have scored 17 points in the second half of a game this season, and it was only the second time all year.
Yeah, no, I mean, it does feel like, especially against that defense, especially having to play from behind, it feels like a huge development and a huge positive silver lining to take away from this game. I think the other part of it is we talked about before, we even knew that Ladd McConkey wasn't going to play. That other guys were going to have to step up, and I think that's really another hopeful part of this game where you see what Quentin Johnston's able to do. I mean, first of all, big time catch, first drive of the game, pulled it in, 3rd and long, held onto it as he got blasted helmet to helmet, and jumped up, first down symbol. That's a 30-plus yard play when you add the penalty on, right? And overall,
massive.
It's 5 catches for 48 yards and 1 touchdown, no drops in this game. That's huge. But I thought even the stuff that didn't show up was really positive for Quentin Johnston. And the big play I'm thinking of is the pass interference that he drew, right? Justin Herbert continuing to trust him throwing it up, and especially in the middle of the field, can be scary. But him playing back through the defensive back probably could even still be more physical and truck stick him and just knock him over. But it's a 39-yard play, right? So you hear 48 receiving yards. It's like, okay, that's an okay game. You add 39 yards onto that, and now you're talking about a 90-yard game from Quentin Johnston. It feels a lot better. So I think just for his confidence, knowing you're going to get Loud McConkey back, hoping that he can continue after going a 3-game stretch where he's catching 4 out of 17 targets, that this can be a positive momentum builder for him going forward. And also having guys like a Stone Smart step up for 3 catches and 54 yards. Josh Palmer coming through in big moments for this team in this game. That has to be another positive development, a big reason why they got things going in the second half offensively, and I think a huge game for someone who relies on their confidence as much as someone like Quentin Johnston does.
Absolutely. It definitely was, and I think I can't remember who pointed it out, but I completely agree. I feel like this was one of the most physical games that Quentin Johnston has played this season, and he showcased that, when he was, initiating contact on that personal, that PI that was called. Also, when he was finishing that run at the end and just absolutely smacking a defensive back on the sideline, like those are the things that, hey, this guy can do. Like he can go explode up the sideline, and he is difficult to tackle. And I feel like he showed that. Obviously, being able to catch those balls in traffic, knowing that you're going to get probably hit pretty hard, and still being able to hold on to the ball. Like you mentioned, that's something that's going to instill confidence in your quarterback to go back to you. And that is something that's massively important for Quentin Johnston, because once he is able to contribute, once he gets in the flow of the game, I think it's a better version of Quentin Johnston. And oh, by the way, let's not neglect the fact that this was his 7th touchdown of the season. So say what you want about Quentin Johnston, and some of those things are well-founded. We are seeing a very, very much better version of him, and a version that tonight, if he's able to build off of this, could be a positive development going forward.
And it's easy to forget that he was a hugely kind of positive thing in the first half of this season, right before he kind of hit that 3-game skid that we just saw. But yeah, I mean, it still doesn't mean you should be throwing go balls to him down the sideline 3 times a game. Still not going to be his game. Doesn't mean that the long-term kind of prospects for him mean he's going to be a major contributor for the rest of his career with the Chargers. What it does mean is, hey, you have some positive momentum for a guy that no matter what, this year is going to have to be a part of your offense. So to get him going, I thought was huge. But I think another thing that might have killed the Chargers offense a little bit was potentially being too conservative. And I saw a lot of discourse online about this. A couple of times in this game where the Chargers were potentially hurt by their conservative head coach. I will put into perspective, they did go for it down by 6 with 10 minutes left in the game. They could have punted it. They were on the Chiefs 40, so you shouldn't. But they did go for it, and they did get it. So it's not like they totally just did not go for it all on 4th down. But this is the parts I'm talking about. These are punted twice inside of Chiefs territory in the first half. Punted from the 39 instead of trying a 56 or 57-yard field goal. Also had another punt after that, getting down to the Kansas City 45 and deciding to punt it, right? You end up with like 40 yards of change field position. I know a lot of people had problems with that. And then I thought the other thing to me that really bothered me was just the end of the game. When you have a situation on 3rd and 16, I understand that you need to keep yourself in field goal range to take the lead in that game. But there's over 4.5 minutes left. They run the ball and gain 5 yards. They changed it from a 42-yard field goal to a 37-yard field goal. And to me, just in that moment, with a $250 million quarterback and one of the few quarterbacks who actually can convert a 3rd and 16, I think you give him a chance there with so much time left to take a 1-point lead against that specific team. Let him have a rip at it, because it's like, hey, if he gets a 3-yard sack and you have to have Cameron Dicker make a 45-yard field goal, you still have to feel good about that.
Yeah, and also, like, I think, hey, Cameron Dicker hit a 59-yard field goal earlier in the season. Like, if you want to throw him out there for a 57, I'm all for it, and I want it. I want him to put him in that situation. This guy is the type of guy that welcomes those type of challenges and has demonstrated repeatedly this year that he can make those long kicks. But yeah, I think against the Chiefs in like in general and specifically, you have to be as aggressive as possible against this team to beat them. You can't, and I appreciate the fact that the Chargers defense played very well in this game. And they're a large reason why the game was as close as it was. But I still feel like you got to pull out all the stops and go for broke against this Kansas City Chiefs team.
And I don't think that's crazy. Both of the drives where the Chargers made it into Chiefs territory and punted, the Chiefs didn't score on either of those drives on the next drive, right? So they got the ball back, and then their offense proceeded to immediately give it back to them. There was a huge, change in field position after they don't go for the 57-yarder. The Chiefs end up getting the ball back, and they don't score, but they pin the Chargers back on their 2-yard line. So it all has ramifications. For the most part, I don't have a huge problem with that, trusting your defense in those moments in the first half. But you can't go into their territory twice and come away with 0 points. And at the end of the game, against that specific team, on 3rd and 16, you let your quarterback let it rip and see what happens. And you trust him. Hey, if things aren't there, you throw it away. Yeah. Whatever the case is, right? It's 4.5 minutes left. They've scored in 13 seconds. The Chiefs are. You're not trying to really burn time right there. Exactly. So those are just parts where it's like, hey, in those moments, maybe if you're a little bit more aggressive, maybe things are different. But I do want to talk about the Chargers defense because as a whole, again, they come out and they perform against this Kansas City Chiefs team and give the Chargers a chance to win. But in the biggest moment, Justin Herbert's defense can't come through again. So we're talking about all that and more today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys, though, to get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now they have a great offer. New customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app also gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Right now, the lines are already out for next weekend's game for the Chargers against the Buccaneers. And the Chargers are opening up as 2.5-point favorites in a huge game they have at home. And we're going to talk about why they can't let this spiral. FanDuel is telling you it's going to be a close one. Over-under currently set at 45.5 points. So you could use your first $5 bet and potentially get $150 in bonus bets. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet, and you don't have to make that bet on the Chargers, I promise you. But that is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, David, well, let's talk about the Chargers defense because, again, I think they came out with a great game plan. They slowed down a Chiefs offense. It's, been a little bit flawed, but it's still on any given down hard to stop one of the best quarterbacks of all time, obviously. But that last drive, man, multiple chances to get off the field, multiple chances to kind of take the game into their own hands, and they weren't able to do it and just let the Chiefs totally grind them down into a loss. But thank you guys, as always, for making us your first listen. We know it can be tough, especially after a game like that. If you guys need a second listen and you want to cleanse your palate with a little bit of NFL talk, you can do that with 2 shows a day on the Locked On NFL channel, where you get Tyler the Man rolling in the morning and my boy Tony Wiggins later on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast from. Dave, let's start with the bad here. Let's start about the Chargers not being able to get off the field on that last drive and kind of how things all broke down there at the end. Because the thing is the Chiefs got the ball with over 4.5 minutes to play. That's an important part, right? 4:35 is on the clock when the Chiefs get the ball back. You're only up by 1, and you just also gave it to them on the 40-yard line because your special teams let you down there. My thing is, you have to at least give your Chargers offense a chance to answer, right? You have to at least give your offense a chance to kind of help your mistake, right? Or give them a chance to only need a field goal in this game. But it came down to a couple of plays. And I know a lot of it's going to go to the 3rd and 7 with 2 minutes left to go, right at the 2-minute warning. Patrick Mahomes rolls out. Deion Henley takes his shot. He whiffs on it, leaving Travis Kelce wide open behind him. You got to get home there. If you're going to take the chance there, you have to get home there. I love Deion Henley. He's been a huge positive development. If you're taking that, and he's put in a bad spot too. If he doesn't get Patrick Mahomes there, there's a good chance that he runs for it himself. Yeah. That's just the fact of the matter, right? Yeah. He took a shot and got there quick enough to where he got there before he could even get it to a wide open Travis Kelce. He just didn't get there. But it was also, David, the 3rd down earlier in the drive for me where you have another great chance. It's 3rd and 10. They haven't even picked up a single yard lead on that last drive. They're going to punt it if you get off the field. Chargers bring the house. They blow up the backfield, but still can't get to him. If you're going to send everyone, you got to air home. It's a lofted up pass to Xavier Worthy, and they get an easy first down. Those are the plays right there to me, David. Those 3rd down chances, another 3rd and 1 where they can't get off the field as well. where it's like somebody has to make a big play on one of those downs for you to win a game like this.
We talked about how good the Chiefs were at, the third and short situation. So I understand, not being able to get there and not being
on
able
the
to
one
prevent
third
that.
and one, sure.
Right, on the 3rd and 1. I understand that. But 3rd and 10, that's inexcusable. You have to get off the field in those situations. You work so hard to be able to get get that offense with that quarterback in that situation to allow your pass rushers to go out there and do what they have done. And, they have done a lot of good work up to that point, 3 sacks, and they were able to hit Patrick Mahomes over 10 times. They absolutely, put a hurting on him. But in that moment, you weren't able to get off the field. And those are so backbreaking to everything that you're trying to do. All your momentum, it just gets zapped away from you. And then against Travis Kelce, Derwin James does a marvelous job of locking him up. Basically, up to that point, he had 36 yards on 4 catches. And then, of course, at the very end, when who's the one person I need to make sure I cannot allow them to go to and convert, it's Travis Kelce. And what happens? In the most critical moment, it goes to him. He makes the easy catch on his knees, and that's the dang ball game.
Yeah, and it was. And I think the thing that's tough is part of the problem is the Chargers were trying to play the run and the pass. I knew 100% chance they are not running the football there. They care way more about getting a first down than getting that extra 40 seconds off the clock and being able to kick that field goal. I know they're throwing it there, but the problem is Joey Bosa is crashing inside, not being able to get contained on Patrick Mahomes. Now he's one-on-one with a Deion Henley between him and a first down, and Deion Henley has to make that play. But it's tough because overall it's such a good game. That one drive doesn't define this Chargers defense. They likely win the game if you have any kind of offense in the first half to pay off a defense that was just holding on for dear life because you couldn't sustain any sort of offense and you left them out there for the entirety of the first half. You allowed an average of 18 points per game over your 2 games against Kansas City. Jesse Minter's defense can slow them down.
Yeah.
You should win both of these games. It was great to see Cam Hart back out there. The secondary is playing great. You have 13 quarterback hits.
13.
You sack him 3 times.
Yeah.
You beat him up. And it sucks because it's it is a bad moment late, but you're doing great. The defense has shown up in both of these matchups and given the Chargers a chance to win.
Yeah, I mean, hey, whenever you hold Patrick Mahomes to 210 yards and a touchdown and hold them under 100 yards rushing, and the only really explosive play that you give up is a 26-yard play to Juju Smith-Schuster, that's a great day. That's a fantastic day. And also, it's 1 touchdown allowed and another game under 20 points allowed on the season. So, man, that's a fantastic defensive performance. But I just feel like they were out there way too much in the first half because their offense just let them down. I mean, they played their absolute butts off in this game, and they did everything they could to keep the Chargers in this game. And it's not their fault. They did everything they could. And I know it sucks and it hurts at the end when, you're just exhausted and you just can't make that one last play to seal it.
Yeah.
But this by no means was a bad performance. It was phenomenal.
Well, I just think it's nice to see back-to-back kind of bounce-back performances by this Chargers defense after getting shredded a little bit by the Bengals, by the Ravens. Back-to-back weeks, getting back to allowing an opponent to score less than 20 points, which is the kind of the book on them the first half of the year. And I think the important part of this now, David, is just this loss sucks. It's hard to take it as a full-blown moral victory. But at the same time, it's you have to spin it in a positive way because you have super, super important games coming down the stretch. You have the final quarter of your season right in front of you. 4 games, right? 4 games where you really have to win 2 games. You basically have to go 500. What I don't want to see is the Chargers having to go into the final 2 weeks of the season with 2 must-win games against the Raiders and the Patriots, no matter how bad those teams are.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I don't want, is that for you to have to go do that because of the spot that you put yourself in. So you have, a short week coming up against the Broncos soon. You have a game this weekend against a very game Buccaneers team that can put up points in a hurry. You cannot let this one loss, this close loss, this heartbreaking loss, spiral into more than that because there's still a lot to play for this season.
Absolutely. The Chargers right now still have an 89% chance to make the playoffs, even with this loss. You still have 2 wins up on the only other 2 teams that are really in the hunt, which is the Miami Dolphins and the Indianapolis Colts. So the Chargers are still in a very good position. But you're right. They cannot allow this loss to put them in a tailspin and really make things a lot more difficult down the stretch. They still got to take care of business against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and then go play the Denver Broncos for a playoff position on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, and I mean, it's 11 days. Like these next 11 days for the Chargers, or where their season is going to be decided to an extent, right? They could back into the playoffs by winning against 2 bad teams for sure. I think the nice thing with Jim Harbaugh is this team is going to come prepared. You know that they're going to be mentally strong enough to not have a letdown performance next week, and they're going to show up against the Buccaneers, who are a good team, and they could lose it, right? But you at least feel like they're going to be game for it, and they're going to be ready, and they're going to have a chance to potentially finish this season strong, and potentially, David, see the Chiefs again in the playoffs. And that's a story for tomorrow when we get into Buy or Sell Tuesday, getting into the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions. And I don't think it's an overreaction to say, I want another shot. I want another shot in the playoffs because it feels like the Chargers have won 2 halves. The Chiefs have won 2 halves. The Chargers are 0-2 against them. They have another shot. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. We'll see if they can make it happen. But to make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. You can also make sure you never miss the show by subscribing and following on all of our social media. You can find us on Twitter at LockedOnLAC, on Instagram at Locked On Chargers, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. You can also find me on Twitter at Dan Talk Sports and David Drogmeyer at Dro Talk SD. But can't let it spiral. A lot of positives they can take going forward. You add Loud McConkey to the second half offense we saw tonight. The Chargers are going to be hard to beat down the stretch, but make sure you guys are back here tomorrow for Buy or Sell Tuesday. Until then, take it easy and go Bolts.